So I keep big bills up in my heart on the dirty like blood. So ain't got no twist in my head, but I'm still dreadful.
Hey everybody, and welcome. It's been a while. It's been a hiatus, at least for this twosome. Welcome to the Fantasy Fullback Dive, brought to you by the good folks at the Road Street Journal. We're paving your way to fantasy glory, even though that's still months off. We're going to be your lead blocker on this journey. Journey may as well start now, mid-March, 1 year into the quarantine. I, of course, am your host, Nat the Truth Jones. With me, as always, it's been a while. It's been since like the Super Bowl. Wolf of Rotor Street himself. How you doing, man?
Doing fantastic, Truth. It feels just good to have some real, actual football news. There's always that like 2 month span where there's like, yeah, there's coaching changes, but nobody wants to break down all these play callers and whatnot till we even know who's going to be on their team. So to have all this player movement going on, I've kind of just finally sprung out of my hibernation, gotten writing again, and I just realized how much I actually genuinely missed it. Like, it was nice to take a break. It was cool and all. But as soon as I started writing about A.J. Brown's like 200-plus targets that are about to come and all the good stuff that we're going to cover in a second, all the juices were flowing, and it was fucking great. All the juices, literally all the juices.
All the juices.
Everywhere. So pumped to be back, though.
A couple different juices off the top of my head, but we're talking about all of the juices. We're flowing.
Absolutely. And it's great to see you, even though it's I don't like to admit it. It is nice to see you every now and again. So.
I know, you say that every time. It's like you grudgingly give me some respect, but the respect's there. I miss hanging out and doing the pod with you too. I'm going to be honest going in. You're going to be more informed on this stuff than me, which is maybe not that different than usual. But I'm going to set you up for some slam dunks over on your end. I will say this: we've been quarantined for a year. My daughter is just an adamant, obsessive basketball player. She's 10 years old. Beginning of the quarantine, I'm a grown man. I used to be a pretty good basketball player. I would obviously much better than her at every aspect of basketball. We had kind of a shooting competition a couple hours ago, and she just absolutely wrecked me. I mean,
I love it.
It was not even close. Like, it was just totally nasty, and I'm still reeling from that a little bit.
Oh man, yeah, that's got to be a devastating blow to the ego to lose to. How old is Serena now? Like 8?
She's 10.
Oh my God, Ted, geez, the time is just fucking an endless loop at this point. Oh my God.
She was 9 at the beginning of the quarantine.
That's impressive, though. That is impressive, and I don't doubt it. She's always going to be.
It was so much of a butt kicking. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it back. Yeah. And if you hear pounding in the background, that's her dribbling, which she is not supposed to be doing while we're recording. So I apologize for that.
The grind knows no stop, as don't we. And we're going to cover tonight. We originally planned to do losers and winners. We realized that would probably take us 6 hours to get through.
It was just too much
I had on this list. So we trimmed it to start with the positives, right? We're going to start with the winners only tonight, and maybe the so far winners as well. The people that have risen so far. So that's how we're going to start with this. I do want to give a preface, a little warning on that too, though, that everyone gets all horny about free agency, as do I. Oh my God, horny. Look at these people and their new jersey colors. Kenny Gallaudet in the Giants blue, like Will Fuller in that teal aqua from Miami. It's all so sexy, right? But realistically, it's very, very rare for a free agent to actually improve on their points per game. Looking at like top 20, so people who actually matter, top 24 QBs, for instance, 12 of such guys have changed teams in the last 10 years. Only 4 of them ended up beating their ADP. That's 33%. 6 did improve in points per game. So about half. That is by far the best hit position of that. The running backs are pathetic. 40 total, top 36 guys drafted. Only 8 of those guys have actually beaten their ADP the next year, 20%, and only 14 improved in their points per game, so 35%. Wide receivers, same type of data there. 19 of 50 have beaten their ADP, and only 17 of 50 improved their points per game. So under 40% for both of those. Interestingly, though, last year of all years, 4 of 4 of the receivers to change teams, D-Hop, Diggs, Sanders, and Robbie Anderson all improved. So that was like the one outlier year. I wonder if 2020, whatever that is, maybe a changing of the guard. So maybe we have to reconsider these trends, but I'm just laying down the preface. Don't get too horny for your players. Tight ends is the worst of all. 1 of 18 has actually beaten their ADP. and 7 have actually improved out of 18 in points per game. So tight ends is just a death knell for people changing teams. So we're going to talk about all these winners, and there's a good chance that a decent amount of them aren't actually going to be winners. That's why I'm trying to keep the list, not too crazy here as we go. Last thing I did want to say before we do start TuneNet, anybody tuned in, if you don't mind just hitting that thumbs up button, it's the easiest way. It's free to do. It's simple. And we love to just give you the free content here. That's what we hope to keep it as. And that's just a nice, easy way that really genuinely helps us get out in front of more eyeballs, more people. So if you don't mind just hitting that as we get into this, if you're listening to the podcast of the next day of this, shooting in like a review, a rating, all that good stuff just really helps us continue to get discovered and take this bad boy to the next level. So it's so appreciated. Thank you for that. I'll probably beg you for at least one more time in this show, but still, thanks again for tuning in. And I hope this insight is good for you guys.
I love the warning at the beginning about it. It's like giving everyone the winning lottery numbers and then just at the end being like, by the way, these probably aren't the winning lottery numbers.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen at your own risk, whatever. All right, we're going to get right into it. The guy that is supposedly number one as far as our winners, but maybe not. Ryan Fitzpatrick, from out of the league to top 10 QB, upside with a lot of other nonsense going on. I mean, Fitzpatrick, I saw a stat on him the other day. He's thrown 25 touchdown passes in a season once in his career.
And that's it?
Yeah, once.
I think he's going to destroy that this year. I think he is by far single-handedly in terms of just like where he started and where he now sits entering free agency versus now, the biggest sheer winner. Now, this is not a list of in terms of most impactful moves. Like Fitzmagic is still a late-round QB. It's not like he's going to shatter the fantasy landscape, but I really think he could be that late-round QB that just dominates for players this year. There's just so much to love about this spot. One, just Fitzmagic himself. And what shocks me about that stat, Nat, is how good this guy has been in fantasy if he hasn't been chucking the TDs. Listen to this one. In 2019, this is sad. This stat just blows my mind. In 2019, once he took over as the full-time guy in week 7, you know how him and like Josh Rosen were flip-flopping? It was disgusting. And nobody
yes.
knew
Josh Rosen. I really liked Rosen that draft year.
Did not end up panning out for him. Ultimately, from week 7 on, only Lamar Jackson scored more fantasy points than Ryan Fitzpatrick from that point on, which is just mind-blowing. And it's not really just like a mirage of just 1 to 2 huge games that really lifted him up. He has been pretty damn steady over his last 18 full starts with the Dolphins. He's been a top 12 QB and topped 22 fantasy points in 12 of those 18 games. So 66% of those. He's only been outside the top 24 just once. So it's not even just like boom or bust. He's been pretty steady. Even when he like doesn't hit those top 12 numbers, he's still doing relatively well. So the floor is decently high. The ceiling's been high. And this was in Miami with pure shit to throw to. Parker, Gesicki, Preston Williams, Myles Gaskin. Who cares about them when you got now Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, Curtis Samuel now added to that weapons cabinet. Logan Thomas was a top 4 tight end last year. So you get that weapons cabinet, check. Then you get the 8th most pass attempts in the leagues last year compared to the 18th, check. 10th fastest pace compared to the 26th fastest place. 9th most plays run versus the 20th. I mean, the list just goes on and on from a talent, from an offensive scheme perspective. All of this is panning out. So we've seen him do it. Now we're going to see him in an even better environment. And he's going to cost you absolutely nothing. Like, you're not risking your entire fantasy season to draft Ryan Fitzmagic. You're taking him in your last round, and you're probably getting yourself a top 10 guy. And who's better to root for than Ryan fucking Fitzpatrick when that beard is just flowing down? He's finding like the smallest cornerback on the field just to truck over. And you just love it. You just fucking love everything about Ryan Fitzpatrick. So I'm stoked about this. He by far is the biggest like single riser in terms of not even on my big board to now in the top 100, top 15 QBs. Love him.
I'll give you this. I do really like pulling for the guy. I've pulled for him everywhere he's ever been. I don't know why. I mean, I don't know. That seems almost universal. So obviously I know I'm not alone. There's just something about the guy that makes you want to pull for him. From a real football standpoint, Washington has a pretty good defense too. They could be sneaky good next year.
Absolutely.
Not that I would ever pull for them as a team, but yeah, they could be all right.
I would love to see that too, right? If that defense and Fitzmagic just becomes the perfect combination, like they're a fun team to root for.
It might be hard not to pull for them, actually.
I'd like to see that happen. Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you.
All right. Well, attached to some of that, let's go to Terry McLaurin. His true ceiling will finally be unlocked. And when you had to say wide receiver 11, is that what you've got him ranked on your preseason board?
Exactly. Yep. That's where he's now jumped up to. Wide receiver 11, which is significantly higher than the ECR as of right now, about 5 to 6 spots. But I love this guy. And this is not the first time I've gushed about Terry McLaurin. I've loved him since he was a rookie, and I picked him up off the waiver wire. You always have a soft spot in your heart for those guys, but he's been the wide receiver 20 in back-to-back years. And this is with Case Keenum, Dwayne Haskins, Alex Smith, maybe a little sprinkling of Taylor Heineke, Kyle Allen, and Colt McCoy. Do any of those names inspire any confidence in you, Nat?
No, that sounds like the old Texans carousel of crap that they had those years with Osweiler and those other guys.
Exactly. And maybe McLaurin's not getting it done on quite Deandre Hopkins level when he was just becoming like the wide receiver 5 no matter who was throwing to him. But top 20 with that type of garbage is pretty impressive. And now you inject, we've seen just so many good things about McLaurin, the 4.35 40-yard dash. But what I really love about this guy was as a rookie, he was first in the NFL in contested catch rate, 68.4% of his jump balls. Is there anything better than that with mixing Ryan Fitzmagic, who just loves to huck the ball and let his guys go and get it? We've seen Devontae Parker go from a complete first-round bust of a pick to the number 2 wide receiver behind only Michael Thomas from that week 7 on point when Ryan Fitzmagic took over. I mean, that's not just by accident. And we saw when Ryan Fitzpatrick was removed last year, what happened to Devontae Parker just completely fell on his face. We've even seen elite guys like Brandon Marshall and Michael Evans have their best statistical seasons with Ryan Fitzpatrick just uncorking it and allowing it to go. And I really don't think Terry McLaurin's all that far off from a guy like Mike Evans talent-wise. We just had the most conservative not even play calling, just QB in terms of Alex Smith would not throw it deep, would not let his guy go win those jump balls. There's a great PFF article on this. And also, our guy over here, Kendall, wrote an awesome article. Check out our rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch or in the app if you want to ever read any of these. Some great stuff coming out right now. But the average depth of target was 6.7 for Terry McLaurin, 31st in the NFL for a guy that can really take the top off the defense, for a guy that was first in contested catch rate. That's just embarrassing to not give this guy more shots. And that's exactly what Ryan Fitzpatrick is going to do, has historically done. I think this is the year. Terry has been great, and we've all loved him coming into the season. Top 20 guy, sure. This is where he breaks into that top 10. I absolutely love him this season.
I will say the contested ball stat that you threw out there, that's personally a stat that I've always taken really seriously. I was early on DeAndre Hopkins, like when he was a rookie, when he came out. And the reason was he just caught all the balls that were like in traffic. And I didn't really know anything about him coming out of college. And when I saw that, in some of the tapes and stuff, I was like, oh, I think he's going to be really good. And of course, I drafted him about a year early in fantasy and stuff like that. But I mean, you see what he's become. I got a lot of respect for guys that can pull it down in traffic.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, another guy. This is the guy I feel like you've just been, coming in your pants about more than anybody. Correct me if I'm wrong, but AJ Brown, you're thinking 150 plus targets feels like a floor for him right now. I mean, that does seem like an elite season in the works, as it says on the banner. You got him as your wide receiver 5. Why?
One, because the exodus, yes, and to confirm your hypothesis there, I've come in my pants quite too many times for A.J. Brown, and this season's going to be the absolute explosion of all of them. I cannot wait to own this guy everywhere I can possibly get my hands on him. One of those reasons is 224 targets are now up for grabs, almost 50%, 47.9% of last year, after Corey Davis is gone, after Jonnu Smith is gone, after Adam fucking Humphries is gone. That's still it's either Humphries, who gives a shit. That's still, 70-something targets there, right there. That's the third most in the league of vacated targets, and the second most inside the 10-yard line, 15 targets right there. Inside the 10-yard line, that's 48.3% of those. A lot of those Jonnu Smith little dink, 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 dinks that came at that 1-yard line. We know A.J. Brown can do that damage too after the catch, can win the contested balls. Never mind the fact that all of this happened when he had surgery on both of his knees in the offseason. They said that they were considering shutting him down as early as week 2. So he was playing on 2 bum legs and still had a dominant season for the most part as a sophomore, nonetheless, too. So if you get a fully healthy guy with this completely wide open target share, when he has seen 9 or more targets, that's only happened disturbingly, criminally low 5 times, given how talented he is, how much he can tilt a game when he just gets the ball in his hand, whether he's knifing through the defense, whether he's going deep. He can do it all. I can't believe he's only seen 9+ targets 5 times across his career. But his 16-game pace in this split, when he does see 9+ targets, 115 receptions, 1,792 yards, 16 touchdowns, 390 fantasy points, 24.4 points per game. No wide receiver in the last 25+ years, not even Randy Moss's record-setting crazy 25 whatever touchdowns he had. Nobody has hit 390 fantasy points, and that's the pace A.J. Brown is on when he sees 9+ targets. And you're telling me this guy can't see 163 targets in this season where all of these guys have left and he's really the only show in town right now? I mean, they added Josh Reynolds. Oh, no. That's going to be
Josh Reynolds.
Like, that's going to really
might as well have added Josh Gordon.
Seriously, like, yeah, exactly, because he's never going to be on the field. Exactly. Right. Like, it doesn't matter what these other guys are. So this is just if you imagine he sees 200 targets, which is probably not going to happen on a Titans team that is built around Derrick Henry, built around the run, but still 9+ targets a game is not a tall ask given how talented this guy is, how many people around him have gone away now, and how fully healthy he is. 144 targets on the year is 9+ a game. That's nothing compared to what this guy's ability and potential around him, with everybody leaving, is. I think he's due for just a league-changing type of game. If you give him round 2, you get your workhorse round 1, then you get A.J. Brown round 2. Oh, that's as juicy of a start as I could ask for.
You like the Henry A.J. Brown kind of Titans stack?
Oh God, yeah. I would be all in on that if I could load up on those two.
Maybe pick up Tannehill too.
Yeah, right. Why not? Right? Because Tannehill. Yeah, I think I would full stack this offense. Now, I am a little bit nervous, right, with Arthur Smith leaving. He's been such a efficient play caller, especially in the red zone. So I am a little bit nervous of, is this going to have a trickle-down effect on all the players there? So maybe loading up on all of those guys wouldn't quite work. It would have worked out these last couple of years, though. And really, there's just no one else to get the ball besides Henry, besides A.J. Brown. There's no one else there that's really commanding any type of threat, in my opinion. So that's one of those offense that is going to put up points, and they're going to be so heavily concentrated in 2 people. I love those types of offenses.
All right. Well, let's stick with them a little bit. Anthony Fersker, he's a quality penny stock to file away amidst the Titans target exodus, which the Wolf just alluded to.
Exactly. And that's really it. Like, I know, to go from A.J. Brown, which I would just rave about all day, and Max Poetic. It's now Anthony Ferguson.
Less excited about this.
Less exciting, for sure. But he goes from somebody who I wouldn't have even thought of to now maybe the number 2 weapon within this offense right now, given how many people have disappeared. And the sample size is very small.
Number 2 weapon in the offense? Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown are the top 2 weapons in
number
the offense.
2 pass catcher, I should have said.
All right.
Yes,
all right.
That good clarification there. He's certainly not the second weapon ahead of Derrick Henry. Yeah, Anthony Ferguson. Get on the bench, Derrick Henry. You got Ferguson to come in here.
We're letting Ferguson carry it 20 times.
Seriously. Unleash that fucking mammoth. But no, he isn't bad so far. It's very limited what we've seen from him. But in his starts, so Jonnu Smith got hurt very early in the Houston Texans game once last year. Ferguson commanded 21.9% target share. He dominated 9 targets, 113 yards, and a score. Just a monster over 25-point fantasy day. He got one other start on the year, didn't quite light it up. Had 7 targets, though, a healthy amount for any tight end. 5 catches, 51 yards. I mean, 10 points from your tight end there in a PPR league. Like last year, that was good enough to be a top 15 guys far more weeks than it wasn't. And he had 2 touchdowns vultured by other shithead tight ends. Like if one of those went his way, you're looking at his only 2 starts being 2 monstrous performances. So I like Ferguson. Again, just to reiterate, the targets that are now available, 224, 47.9%, 15 of those coming inside the 10. That's where I really think Ferguson, big body, athletic guy, could do a lot of the damage if they use him like they use on Jonnu Smith. I mean, you saw that one when they like handed it off to Jonnu Smith because you had Tannehill and Derrick Henry, right? Like, was that what that devastating moment was?
Yeah.
Maybe they do that with Ferguson a little bit more.
That really was terrible.
That is the stuff of fantasy nightmares right there. He's not quite the athlete of Jonnu Smith, so I don't know if he'll get those backfield snaps and things of that nature. But at this point, I mean, he could very well see the second most targets on this team. I still think 200 of them should go to A.J. Brown, and about 50 should go to Ferguson. But right now, as it stands today, there's a wide open opportunity and an offense that we've seen just cook down the field. So I like Ferguson as a sleeper this year.
All right, Dak Prescott locked up to not like 10-year deal, but like a long deal where he's guaranteed tons and tons of money. You know, people have certainly differing thoughts on that. Some people think it's about time. Some people think the Cowboys are crazy. I'm not going to get into that right now, but you are pretty confident that the Cowboys position players, their skill guys, are going to get a bump from this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you just look at what happened last year with and without Prescott, it's not even night and day. It's not even Jekyll and Hyde. Like, it's just that the gap is insanely wide between how these guys performed with and without him. As a whole, the offense was averaging almost 32 points per game, top-ranked offense in the league at the time before the injury. Prescott himself was almost on pace for 6,000 passing yards. 5,000.
I was a Dak Prescott owner.
Yeah, so that's something that just halted your fantasy
season. Great 3 weeks or so.
Right? It's brutal. The team that was in first place in my league ended up finishing in 11th after he lost Dak Prescott. That's how much he was able to carry teams, because that team was pretty garbage outside of Prescott. And now, he elevated that team to the moon for those first few weeks. That's the type of guy that Prescott is, and that's why he's my number 3 quarterback, all back and ready to go. The full weapons cabinet still there. I absolutely love him. The only two I have above him are Pat Mahomes, obviously, and maybe who do I don't even actually know. I just know I have him at QB3. I don't even know who I
now
really
want to know who's who. Is it
Josh
Rodgers?
Allen. I have Josh
Herbert?
Allen.
Is it Allen?
Josh Allen, yeah, and I'll stick with that too. Josh Allen is such a fucking monster, so I'll keep him at number 2. But yeah, Prescott at 3, I have no qualms about. Again, almost 6,000 yard pace for this guy last year when he was healthy. But obviously that impact is massive on everyone around him. Ezekiel Elliott averaging 22.5 points per game, the third most among running backs with Prescott. 12.9 points per game, or the RB 26 without him. And honestly, like, I'm surprised it was that high, because there was so many weeks that Zeke just killed you down the stretch. 5.
Remember, we were having conversations weekly or bi-weekly if we were recording twice, where a legitimate question we were kicking around is, do you bench Zeke? And this was playoff run. Like, this is make the playoff run and in the playoffs. And every time it was, do you bench Zeke? And I think most of the time we ended up kind of grudgingly saying, yeah, you do. And I think we were pretty much right every time. He
was like my locked in high or lower Hail Mary. It was Zeke was the easiest one, because people were still ranking him not quite as Zeke of the early season, but like top 15, because it's Zeke Elliott, right? You have to. It's Zeke. It never worked out. It was so easy to rank him lower and win on that part of the segment. Remember, it would be like Jeff Wilson or Zeke Elliott, and it's like, I can't believe I'm saying Jeff Wilson, but it's Jeff Wilson, and that would be right. Like, ridiculous stuff. But he was not the only one. Zeke Elliott was not the only one with massive discrepancies. Amari Cooper, 20.8 points per game, wide receiver 3, while Dak Prescott was there, 12.6 points per game, 37th wide receiver without Dak. CeeDee Lamb, one of my favorite rookies to come in last year, looked like I was a genius for singing this guy's praises, saying he was probably the first rookie I would take among all those receivers. 16.5 points per game, the wide receiver 12 as a rookie in his first 5 games, a wide receiver 1. Crazy. 12.2 points per game, the wide receiver 38 without Dak. So that just goes to show how crazy these splits were with and without Dak, and how important it is that Dak is back now, because I don't see any reason why these guys would do anything. I mean, unless Dak's not fully healthy, which I guess is a somewhat of a risk, but it did happen early in the season. It's not one of those injuries that's like, typically, it was a fracture. So it's like, once it heals, typically, at least. So I'm no doctor, but that's my expectation. He had like a huge fracture, right? Which is like, once it heals, it heals. It's not like a ligament where you're worried about like a re-tear or a pull or anything of that nature. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure that a fracture is like a better injury to recover from. If I'm wrong, fantasy doctors, please correct me, if commenters, whoever is out there. But I'm pretty sure that a fracture is a better type of injury to have than like a ligament or a pull of any kind.
I just want to say to the viewers at home, I'm just as shocked as you guys are. I've been doing this podcast for years under the impression that the Wolf was a medical doctor, and now I'm finding out. I'm sorely disappointed. He had to clarify
you once knew
a couple times, like, I'm not a doctor, and I'm like, whoa.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'm sorry to shatter your world there, Nat.
I know. I'll move on. Okay.
He'll get over it. But ultimately, I do think, Dak did prove to be a great fit in Mike McCarthy. As much as whatever you want to say about the guy, he's crafted some very good passing offenses since his time with Rodgers, since his start and with the Cowboys and Dak Prescott. I only think they take another step forward because it's the second year in the system, lessons learned, all that good stuff. So I'm all aboard Elliott again. I'm all aboard Cooper again and Lamb, all these major pieces, and maybe even Blake Jarwin as a sleeper later in the draft. I just love my Cowboys for this fantasy factory to reignite, especially because they didn't make any free agency moves, more importantly on the defensive side, which is why every game became a shootout because their defense is just so fucking abysmal. When they had Dak there and they could just go back and forth toe-to-toe, that was the DFS. I think 3 out of the first 4 weeks, the winning team either had Dak or they had the guy that was facing Dak on the other side. It was wild how the shootout games were happening. So I'm expecting a lot more of those fireworks in 2021.
All right, Chris Carson, return, best case scenario, especially if the Seahawks can take off. You got him as your RB19. I had Carson last year, and when he was good, he was good. Definitely missed a little bit of time, inconsistent. The Seahawks kind of looked like a weird team near the end. What do you think? Why do you think his stock's going up?
Yeah, I just like the return home because I don't know that he would have landed a featured back role anywhere else, and certainly not in an offense that has the upside of the Seahawks. As you mentioned, it was one of those offenses that went from the highest scoring in the league, similar to the Cowboys. There was a half of the league, the first 9 weeks, where nobody could put up the points that the Seahawks were, especially the Cowboys once they lost Dak. Couldn't even keep pace with them. And then for whatever reason, they reined it in. They got all conservative. They went back to their Seahawks roots of just running it far too many times and not letting Russ cook. It was awful. But either way, Chris Carson was still pretty damn steady, pretty damn sturdy. He's been the running back 13 and running back 14 in fantasy points per game the last 2 seasons. He's been a top 24 running back in 20 of his 27 last games played. That's 74% of them. And he's only been below 10 fantasy points 3 times in his last 27 games. So, I mean, as you said, like he had his down games, but it was never like he was killing you. He always was getting like 60 yards and a score. In fact, a Seahawks running back scored in every single game except 2 last year.
He's a pretty good pass catcher too. So in any sort of PPR format, you were getting a little bump there.
Yeah, especially last year, we had games with multiple receiving touchdowns, and that's kind of what I wanted to get. Yes, I just illustrated the floor is so safe, and that's nice to have. Your round 3 pick to just know, like, I'm getting a top 24 running back every single week, and I just got it in round 3. But we can't just say there's no ceiling here. He was the running back 7 for those first 9 weeks where the Seahawks were lighting up scoreboards, when he was catching a ton of passes, including touchdowns, 17 and a half fantasy points in that span. So if this offense can, a big if, because we've seen this fluctuation, but if they can get back to those top 5 levels, they did hire a passing game coordinator from the Rams to be their now offensive coordinator while firing Brian Schottenheimer. So I like that move at least. So the floor is still going to be there. This is by far the ideal spot for Carson's floor. And now the ceiling, maybe we get a full 16 finally of Russ cooking. That would make Carson a potential top 10 running back. And he's never that sexy draft pick that everyone's scrambling to get. So you'll find him in round 3, oftentimes maybe even round 4. I love that price point. I'll be right back into Chris Carson.
All right, Aaron Jones. This is a guy with some serious ceiling potential, no doubt. He's preserving his spot where he's already been the RB2 and the RB5. Got more target upside, allegedly. Why do you say that?
Well, Jamal Williams is now gone. And yeah, sure, Aaron Jones was like the number 1 running back, but a lot of times Williams, especially because of how good he was in pass protections, would come in on third downs. He ran 194 routes, 35 targets, 31 receptions last year. That definitely bumps it up. He saw 45 targets the year before that. So, I mean, 80 combined targets the last couple of years. You give most of those to Jones, I got to expect. Because, yeah, sure, Dillon has hands. We all, as human beings, he has hands there, but they weren't really ever put to use in college. I'm looking at the stats here, and he didn't really see any type of volume in the passing game. We saw him have a couple drops even on the very few meager 32 routes, 21 receptions that he had in college. That's not part of his game. He's got the best thighs in the world, A.J. Dillon, of the running back position, but that's not helping him out in the pass game at all. So with that increase we saw those games, right, where Devontae Adams was out and Aaron Jones suddenly saw like 9, 10 targets. Those were the games where he went absolutely bananas. And I'm not saying that's going to be an every week occurrence because Devontae Adams is going to be there still. But, with those running back volume and the passing game more shored up, I love it. And I just like that he's back where we know he's going to be successful. Again, back-to-back years, as you said, RB2, RB5, 19.9, 18.4 points per game across those last 2 years. He's just a perfect fit since that zone blocking scheme got here from Matt LaFleur. He just sees the hole so well, zips right through it. And plus that money they gave him, $48 million over 4 years. Like, how do you give someone that price and not really turn over the keys to him? So, I mean, next week's show, we're going to talk about losers. A.J. Dillon, certainly a fantasy loser out this, but I really do think, there's so much good speculation, like, oh, what if he went to the 49ers? How good would he look? And the cherry red of all that stuff. Like, sure, give me right where I know the fantasy stake is going to give me top 5 running back stats. And he's going to go in round 2 because he's just always undervalued. The one thing, too, I do want to, I know I'm rambling a little bit about Aaron Jones, but the one thing that was interesting with last year, I owned him 2 years ago. He actually scored more points per game. I was off the train because it was so boom or bust a couple seasons ago. It was one of those things where he was either winning you your week or he was losing you your week.
Didn't you feel like that a lot of that came down to bad coaching? I mean, weren't we just complaining all the time about his usage?
Yep, 100%. And a lot of that was Jamal Williams stealing the passing game usage, getting random red zone looks for no reason, who, again, is now gone to those Detroit Lions as a team. But what was great is show the weekly floor.
I'll bet he's excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. So
I noticed he's not on this big winner list.
No, certainly not. Don't really give a shit about Jamal Williams. I'm just happy he's gone for Aaron Jones. But yeah, Jones, 19 total touchdowns in 2019, regresses to 11. Again, the fact that he's still ranked top 5 in fantasy points, top 7 in total house calls and touchdowns, and then his floor, he only fell outside the top 24 running backs twice this last year, as compared to 5 times where he cost you weeks in 2019. So we saw that nice floor boost, and now he's probably going to have it even higher with Jamal Williams gone. It's not sexy and sizzly, but I love that Aaron Jones has returned to the Packers.
All right, last guy on our biggest winners list, Daniel Jones. He's landing the ultimate alpha wide receiver 1 in Kenny Gallaudet. I've heard a lot of people on various podcasts that I listened to before he got picked up just being like, why aren't more people just throw in the kitchen sink to get Kenny Gallaudet? His talent, undeniable. And I admit when he's played, he has been really, really awesome. But he, supposedly, you're saying his addition changes the entire complexion of the offense. You're not the only guy I've heard say that. You think Daniel Jones is going to really benefit greatly from having a weapon like that?
If Daniel Jones is any good himself, then
right,
yes.
Which is not like a slam dunk.
No, not at all. We don't know quite yet. We've seen glimpses of amazing Daniel Jones. In fact, 2 years ago, only Lamar Jackson had more 30-point fantasy games than Daniel Jones. So, we know there is a ceiling there, and it's a very, very high ceiling for Daniel Jones. But we've also seen a disturbingly horrible floor. How much of that was weaponry and how much of it's play calling, we don't know yet. But for now, we at least have the weaponry excuse off the table, because Gallaudet, when he is healthy, is an elite alpha. He is big, he is fast, he is strong, he is everything you want from your wide receiver 1. And he was 3rd in contested catches across these last 2 years. I know you love the contested catch rate, so I wanted to make sure I got that on there for you.
Oh, Galladay's a guy that's up there too, right?
What's that?
Galladay's a guy that's up there too.
Yeah, third in the last 2 years, right. 36 contested catches. Right. Jump balls go from 50-50 to like 65-35 when you have a guy like Kenny Gallaudet. And Daniel Jones, for all his faults and all the disturbing floor we just talked about and falling on his face when no defenders are near him.
That's the only thing I'm going to remember about that guy.
Just notorious. He's still, according to Pro Football Focus, had the best passer rating on passes of more than 20-plus yards. I think
that can't possibly be true.
I mean, Pro Football Focus, you can have your qualms with them however you want. I don't know how that's necessarily true either. But still, I do think Daniel Jones, I've seen glimpses where this guy has a very live arm and a lot of talent. My biggest worry here is Jason Garrett still the play caller and just him standing there and like clapping. I just fucking hate Jason Garrett. I want him out of the league and done war. He had his years where Tony Romo lit it up. We had plenty of explosive Cowboys offenses, but I think that's a lot more about Tony Romo than it was Jason Garrett. Even still, though, if Daniel Jones is going to take that next step, and we've seen a lot of those like Josh Allen, like, oh, he was so raw, and then he got his number one, and this offense just blew up. I mean, there's a lot of those parallels. He has his number one now. He has the arm. He certainly can sling it deep. I just think Brian Daboll for the Bills is a significantly smarter human being than we've seen Jason Garrett ever be. So many 4 wide receiver sets, no huddle, pushing the pace. That's just not Jason Garrett. Maybe it will be this year. He certainly has all the talent around him he needs to thrive. Either way, like Daniel Jones was 28th on my QBs. Now he's in a top 20 spot for me because of this weaponry, because of the complexion of the offense. Now you get Saquon back, you get a couple linemen back, Solder, little improvements there. I do think everything is around him that there should be no more excuses other than Jason Garrett or Daniel Jones sucking himself, and I will take that risk. Not over Ryan Fitzmagic, my favorite late round QB, but I will take that risk in the late rounds of fantasy drafts, no doubt about it.
All right, so that's the end of the biggest winners list. How would you? We should probably move through this next group a little quicker because how would you label this next list? Like, how would you refer to them if your first 8 guys were your biggest winners?
I still like these guys. So the next like 8 or 6 or so guys are like definitely winners, still a little bit to see. And then there's going to be 3 or 4 guys that could end up being the biggest winners of free agency. I just don't expect that to happen. But this next 9 through 14 or so, I do consider winners.
All right, so these are still winners, just maybe not as big. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in for the sophomore rebound. No Damian Williams, etc. Man, CEH broke a lot of hearts last year.
Sure did. I mean, nobody more than us. Like, we couldn't have been higher on him. And, that was our fault for overlooking like rookies in a pandemic and all that. We should have been a little more cautious on this guy. But all the reasons we loved him still kind of exist this year. One of the big things being Damian Williams has been removed since the start of free agency. He was released by the team, and I don't think that can be discounted. The running backs coach loved this guy, as did Eric Bieniemy, their offensive coordinator. All they do is rave about Damian Williams. I think he had the potential to be a real thorn in Clyde Edwards-Helaire's side. And now we know he's gone. Le'Veon Bell probably not going to be back. And now they brought in Joe Thuney, one of the best offensive guards in football, over from the Patriots. Kyle Long comes out of retirement and joins him. So that interior of the line is now looking beastly. I'm not sure what's going to happen at the tackle spot since they've cut both of theirs. We still need to see that happen. But in terms of running back value, the interior is often more important than the outside. So I love all that. Plus, we have a pretty decent example in that Lesean McCoy, the only other guy drafted in the top 60 picks by Andy Reid as a running back, as a freshman, as a rookie, he didn't do anything. He had 195 touches, 40 receptions, 945 yards from scrimmage, and 4 TDs. Worse than what Clyde Edwards-Helaire did in less games last year. And then the next year, we saw Lesean McCoy's totals almost double across the board. 285 touches, 78 receptions, 1,672 yards, and 9 TDs. Now, obviously, it's not like a lock that he suddenly goes from a mildly used rookie to then this blow-up sophomore. But then we also saw Brian Westbrook, 55 touches, 279 scoreless yards, to go to 154 touches, 945 yards, and 11 touchdowns. So, we've seen Andy Reid ease in these rookies, and Kareem Hunt would be your counter, but that's because 2 people got hurt in front of him. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire really double the amount of work he saw last year. This is also a guy that is playing with Patrick Mahomes, so this offense is going to be putting up points in an improved line. How many times did defenders just shoot through the gaps and knock him out in the backfield? I really think the improved line, just a sophomore leap, a full offseason to get really acclimated, is going to work wonders for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's going to fall to, right now, round 3 as a guy that was going in the top 6 in fantasy drafts. I really think this is the year we see that top 6 upside come back. But ultimately, you get him in 2 rounds later than you have to. I love Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming back this year.
All right, a couple other guys I know you like. Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, both guys you liked last year. Herbert, I'd say, exceeded all expectations, even though we like the guy. Certainly an improved offensive line, number one thing that can help a QB, probably number one thing that can help a running back. And the Chargers have really zeroed in on that in the offseason, right?
100%. They go from literally the worst center in football last year, Dan Feeney, whoever that is. I don't know who Dan Feeney is. Hopefully his family members aren't listening. Sorry, Dan Feeney, if you are. He absolutely horrendous player. Most hurries in the league, most pressures in the league. Not even really close on that list. They go out and sign Corey Linsley, who was the exact opposite of that. The fewest pressures, actually 0 pressures allowed last year, and a top 3 guy in run blocking among centers. So all of that is fantastic. They also address the line with a tackle as well, Matt Filer from the Pittsburgh Steelers, who started the past 2 seasons. So is he great? Probably nothing amazing, but certainly better than anything the worst line in the league had to offer last year. So 2 big talent injections into this line for a quarterback that thrives if he has that time to just uncork that unbelievable arm. I absolutely love an improved line for Justin Herbert. I think Justin Herbert's going to be that Josh Allen of this year. I think they're going to add at least one more receiver in the draft. You already have Keenan Allen. Mike Williams still can go and jump over any defensive back. And Austin Eckler, of course, is amazing. So I really do think Justin Herbert's going to be that guy that falls to like round 7, 8. And then by this time next year, we're like top 3, top 2. I really think Justin Herbert has that much talent. He's got the weapons around him. Now he has the offensive line to protect him. And I really think Austin Eckler is going to leap up again as well. Just a season removed from being a top 4 running back. And that was with sharing the backfield with Melvin Gordon. A couple injuries last year got in the way from him really, truly hitting his ceiling. And that now has his price falling back to late round 2. Give me that all day behind an improved offensive line, and offense is going to be even better. The one question mark is, how is this play caller, Joe Lombardi, comes over from the Saints? Love that background, but his one stint as a play caller with Detroit was absolutely god-awful. So who knows how that will end up playing out. But so far, so good, saying we're crafting this offense with Justin Herbert in mind. Obviously, coach speak that you expect to hear, but it's still good to hear when we've seen so many stubborn coaches try to fit square pegs into round holes. I think we're going to see Justin Herbert really uncork it, have a lot more time than he's used to, and it's going to just work wonders for this entire offense.
Just the first thing you gave on that line just really got my attention. You're talking about the worst blocking center in football, replacing him with a guy who literally did not give up a pressure the entire season. Can you imagine just the security, especially for a young quarterback, pretty much knowing 100%, like, I'm not going to have trouble up the middle. Like, I'll be okay. My center will take care of me. That's just such a confidence booster. You know what I mean?
Got to be the biggest type of, exactly, like just the mentality coming into the drives. I love it. Absolutely.
Jared Cook. This is a guy who's broken some hearts over the years. Massive TD upside. Not done yet. Sorry, Parnham truthers. Explain. Unpack that headline for me.
Lots going on there. But Jared Cook, the last 2 years, let's ask you this one. Who do you think has the most touchdowns among tight ends across the last 2 seasons?
I feel like this is a loaded question. I would have said Travis Kelce, but would the answer be Jared Cook?
No. Jared Cook is tied with Travis Kelce for second. The first is Mark Andrews. Across the last 2 seasons. So that just goes to show you, anything when you're tied as a tight end with Travis Kelce in any statistical realm is pretty damn good. This guy has been scoring at a massive clip when he's with the Saints the last 2 years. Joe Lombardi comes over from the Saints, who, you go out and get your guys that can thrive in the offense you're trying to implement. He went right out and got Jared Cook, who is rumored to have run a 4.4 at 240 pounds, 6'5". Like, we've seen the touchdown upside because of that massive frame, but he can also really get vertical down the seams. He is getting older, which makes me a little more nervous. I'm getting toward that point where there's guys that's just like, you're too old, we'll not draft you. I do have some ageism, but I think Jared Cook is a guy I'm going to make an exception for, because after Keenan Allen, yes, like I said, I like Mike Williams. I like a lot of the, Guyton. Who are these other guys that actually exist? I hope they go out and draft like a Jamar Chase, for example. But really, I think there's some huge touchdown upside, because I think this Chargers team is going to rank top 5 in fantasy, in total points and fantasy points among everybody. I really think it's going to be similar to that Bills turnaround we saw. As I said, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert's going to be that Josh Allen this year, in my opinion. And that means people are going to have to catch touchdowns, and they're not going to all go to Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. If they're in the red zone as much as I think they are, we've seen Jared Cook be a proven monster in this area. I think he has all the skills he needs, even at a little bit of an older age here, to just get it done at a really high level. And because of the age, he's going to fall in drafts. I think he finishes the top 12 tight end. They're probably going to be able to get towards the last rounds of your draft. I love it.
All right, this next one, we really got to talk about this. Cam Newton regains late round QB appeal with vastly improved weapons cabinet, if he's the guy. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you that the weapons cabinet has improved. But I just want to I want you to take a deep breath, and I want you to think about the football you saw Cam Newton play last year. And I'm a guy who was actually, I've been a lifelong Patriots hater. I found myself pulling for this guy. And it was one of the worst displays of quarterbacking I've ever seen in my life. I mean, the guy couldn't complete just simple 10-yard passes to guys that were open right in front of him. It was, I mean, can you recall someone that you've seen play worse quarterback than that?
Nope.
I'm sure it's happened, but I mean, off the top of my head, I'm like, yeah, that's about as bad as I've ever seen someone play quarterback. So I think you'd have to have a weapons cabinet that included like one of those vibranium arms that the Winter Soldier wears in the Marvel movies, because Newton's arm's completely shot, or his shoulder, same thing. I reject your late round quarterback appeal on Newton. No chance, unless he's just a completely different guy than I saw play quarterback last year. Sell me on this. Tell me I'm wrong.
So the one thing you're wrong about here isn't that he sucked as a passer. Among the worst passing performances, as you said, we've probably ever witnessed. It was horrendous. And I can't sit here and say I'm confident that he's going to suddenly magically improve because he gets a full off season as a passer. He's never been a great passer, and that was some of the worst throwing we've ever seen in our lives. And I will also preface that I wouldn't be shocked if the Pats go at a high-end rookie at pick 15 or trade up and get somebody, and that we might be talking about a different starter in a couple months here. But the thing that I like about for fantasy, we're talking fantasy, not real life. As a Patriots fan, I'm not sitting here excited that Cam Newton's my quarterback. I don't like that at all. It's not exciting. But for fantasy purposes, I like that I saw 137 rush attempts, the second most of his career, despite him missing multiple games. 12 rushing touchdowns, the second most of his career, despite missing multiple games. I do think there is some legitimacy to the fact that he was the quarterback 3 in fantasy football, got COVID, and it just never really, he was, even as a passer, was getting it done. We saw him for almost 400 yards against Seattle in week 2. And then, we did see players bounce back from COVID, but there is something about that momentum they were building. They had offense, and they really only had a few months to gel. And then suddenly he's removed for 3 weeks, and he just never seemed to get his footing again. So this was all happening as well with literally the worst weapons cabinet you could possibly ask for. I don't know if you could name a worse weapons cabinet than what the Patriots rolled out last year. They go and add Hunter Henry and Jonathan Smith, probably the best tight end duo in the league now. And, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, do we over splurge on them based on some of these wide receiver deals that have come out since then? Absolutely. It infuriates me. It's still also far better than anything we had at wide receiver last year when we're rolling it out. So you give this guy improved weapons. You give him a full offseason to learn it, full, obviously, recovery from the COVID and everything. And let's be real, this guy did have 40% of his games as a QB1, 20% as a QB2. Those 40% where he was not a QB1 or QB2 were bad, 5 points, ruin your week bad. So he got to the point where you probably weren't starting Cam Newton because of how.
No, you probably weren't starting him.
If
That's
you
true.
were,
listen, I hate it when you make sense, and I'm gonna have to die on this hill. But I will say this: I have seen across sports there does seem to be a lingering effect of COVID from some of these guys. So it's hard for me to argue with that. I've seen it. I'm a big NBA fan, and I've definitely seen it with some NBA guys. They get it. They come back. They're able to play, but they're just not quite the same. I just feel like Newton's play was so bad. His throwing was so bad. It's man, that's got to be more than COVID.
Right. It is hard to ignore how bad that was. And he's always been a pretty bad thrower.
Yeah, but this was next level. I mean, you're right. He's never been an amazing passer, but this was non-NFL passing.
Yeah, didn't belong on an NFL field. The Konami code upside is still real, though. The rushing upside, if he can even improve just mildly because he has somewhat decent weapons, then he could realistically be a QB1 more weeks than he isn't. I still don't know, though, if it's going to ever get away from like the weeks that he doesn't score 2 rushing touchdowns. He might just be at like 5 fantasy points and just kill you. So it's not, I'd rather have, let's say, Ryan Fitzmagic. I'd probably rather have Daniel Jones, who we already talked about, than Cam Newton. But there is
Andy Dalton.
No, God, no. Fuck Andy Dalton. Come on. Now we're fuck that. Get out of here with that. But the rushing upside does keep him at least in your fantasy conversation. And the fact that you're going to get him in your last rounds is like, let's just see what happens here. Maybe just maybe he regains that stud that was, again, the QB3 in fantasy over those first 2 to 3 weeks before COVID hit. Maybe he can regain that form.
Maybe. All right, let's stick with that team. Damian Harris, beastly line. Cam's return bodes well for this bruiser. So why don't you just pick up where you left off and switch over to Harris?
Yeah, and I think that probably makes sense too to Cam. The line upgrades aren't insignificant here. Yeah, they lost Joe Thuney, but they get back Trent Brown at left tackle, gives them the flexibility to move Isaiah Wynn either to the right side or where he'd probably be even better in the interior at guard. You get Karras back. You get David Andrews back. All these linemen are coming back and loading up along the front. To me, it looks like they're just loading up to be a ground and pound. Let Cam run. Let Damian Harris run. I love all of that. Plus, Jimmy White most likely going to be gone. There's rumors he's going to go to Tampa Bay, where perfect fit with Tom Brady, his old QB over there. Would love James White there as a sleeper should he emerge there. But if he's gone, Burkhead has some pass catching chops. Damian Harris, I see too many people discrediting how good this guy can be as a pass catcher in Alabama. He definitely had some receiving upside. I think that's why the Pats, so many reports emerging in training camp last year, this guy was going to be their featured back. He did suffer an injury in training camp that kind of put that on halt, but they loved the fact that he could catch, could run. You couldn't really figure out what they were going to do when you had Damian Harris in. We didn't see that capitalized upon too much last year, but I think that just because it wasn't used doesn't mean it's not there. I think there's some receiving upside, especially if James White leaves behind this beastly line in a power-based attack. I think Damian Harris is a guy that could run for an 800, 900 yards in this committee, 10 to 12 touchdowns, and catch 40 balls. And you're going to probably get him at around 8 or 9. Love the upside stab that you can take on Damian Harris as of right now.
All right. Last guy on the maybe kind of winners list, but not all in. Tyler Higby. No Gerald Everett. He's been glorious for his value in the past. It's actually true, I would say. His value has not been super high, and he has produced a decent amount. All right, sell me on Tyler Higby if you dare.
Now, get how crazy these splits are. I've never actually seen anything quite like this. When one player's removed, a player go from like this is the most drastic example I've ever seen. So he's only had 5 games without Gerald Everett across his career. You might remember those games because they were 2 seasons ago at the end of the year where no tight end was on more championship rosters than Tyler. He had a crazy end to 2019. Only him and Brashad Perriman, the 2 highest owned guys on fantasy championships, just still blows my mind. But in the 24 games with with Gerald Everett, 7 points on average, 3 receptions a game, 2 touchdowns over a course of a season, 32 yards. Just
pedestrian numbers.
Pedestrian would be kind on those numbers. Like not usable, hideous, disgusting. You don't want him on your team. Awful. Without Gerald Everett in 5 games, he averaged 23.24 fantasy points per game. That would be 3 more points than Travis Kelce averaged last year in a record-setting year. 7.8 receptions, a touchdown per game, so 16 over the course of the season. On 160 targets was the pace, and nearly 100 yards per game. Was on pace for 1,510 yards. So we're talking a 1,510 yards, 16 touchdown, 125 catch season from Tyler Higby in the games where he did not have Gerald Everett play.
Well, and I mean, obviously that's not sustainable, but you could chop a big chunk out of that and still have a real good tight end season.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what I'm hoping happens. They add Deshaun Jackson. I mean, that's obviously a different type of weapon, so I don't think that eats into his workload too much. I don't think we're not getting that pace. And I don't know that I'm overly optimistic that we even get like half of it. But the fact that existed still has to at least suggest there's a ceiling here that could win leagues. And after last year's dud, a lot of people bought into it. You know, the last 5 games, the recency bias had people buying Higby as like a round 9-10 guy. I think this year you're going to find him fall to the last end of your drafts, and people are going to forget that ceiling existed. So this is just a reminder that Tyler Higby won more leagues than anybody else in 2019. And the guy that was in his path, once he was removed, that facilitated that breakout, is now gone. So just saying, maybe, just maybe Higby could be a monster.
All right, before we get into our last 3 guys, which are guys that have won so far, but things could change. I just want to remind everybody to give us a like. The Wolf said he was going to do it at least one more time throughout the podcast. He's been sleeping on that, but he's been just spitting out information, like one of those old supercomputers from like the 50s. So you'll forgive him for getting about that. Give us a like. It really helps out on any of the, whatever you're watching on Periscope, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. When you listen to the podcast, like that one, subscribe, give us a rating, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and that's a good point out too. Like a lot of people do catch us live, and that's awesome. We appreciate it. We love having you live. We have 20 comments already. Would love to see that number. We had some podcasts in the season where we got like 200 something questions. It was awesome.
Oh, right, where we had to I had to physically pull myself away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like 4 hours later, that was the best. But if you do prefer audio, we do have this all in podcast form. The Fantasy Fullback Dive on iTunes. You can find us there. So check that out. And all these news we're breaking down, if you prefer written format, you like to read in addition to listen, you can just find all this at the rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch, where we just hit all these little quick hitters, or find it in our app. Search Roto Street Journal, only on Apple right now. We're trying to work and get on the Android phones as well for all you weirdos that don't use Apple phones.
When you said if you like it in written form, I thought you were going to say we had one of these interns like jotting all this down by hand, like transcribing the podcast in shorthand.
Exactly. Love it.
All right.
Yeah, check out all that type of content. Well, if you love the video, great. Stick with us there. But if you prefer audio, you can find our podcast. You can find all our written content at rotostreetjournal.com, specifically for these little blurb hits, rotostreetjournal.com/stockwatch. And thanks again.
Speaking of watching stuff live, obviously probably more people listen to us, afterwards or watch us afterwards. I was trying to explain to my kids the other day the difference between TV now and TV when I was a kid, and about how if you wanted to watch TV when I was a kid, you had to show up at Wednesday at 8:30 if that's when your show was on. And if you didn't, you just didn't see it. And they just looked at me like I was completely insane.
Right.
And
on demand.
Well, my son, who's 5, I told him this and he was just really confused. He asked a bunch of follow-up questions and then he kind of paused and then he just said, because it was such an alien concept to him, he goes, "Did you have phones when you were a kid?" And I said yes, but then I realized the phones we had when I was a kid did not resemble phones like we had now. It's like, we had like a rotary thing with a cord that was attached to the wall. And so if you wanted to talk to your girlfriend, you had to stretch it around the corner.
Oh, man.
Sorry for this tangent, but just reminded me of that.
It's the truth. Remember, you had to record things on VHS if you wanted to catch a replay.
And there was one kid in the neighborhood who might know how to program a VCR, and he was like a real shithead, but you had to kind of be nice to him because he could tape your shows because it was like learning like some extremely complicated mathematical equation.
Oh, of course, yeah. You'd have to sacrifice. He'd come over after school that day. And you're like, "Fuck, I have to eat this," and he's gonna eat all my fucking pizza rolls.
And just be like, "Hey, buddy,
how
you doing?" Right.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a bad day for your pizza.
I would like to do a show just about that at some point.
We totally should.
All right, final list. These are guys who have won so far. Will Chase Edmonds remain the workhorse? What's his value if he does?
I mean, the value is a top 15 running back, should be going in rounds 3 at latest 4 if he remains the guy. We know Kenyon Drake. We're going to talk about Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake next episode when we talk about losers. He's gone. And so at this point, it's really only Chase Edmonds. They drafted Eno Benjamin last year, and maybe he gets a little work. But right now, Chase Edmonds is the only guy that's logged any meaningful work at an NFL level on the Cardinals. And last year when Drake missed time, he saw 28 to 30 touches in all the games when Drake was out. So he was a true workhorse in that time. Now, we've already had Cliff Kingsbury. CJ wrote about this earlier in the offseason. Endorse Edmonds as a potential bell cow. Say we trust him in that featured back role. We trust him as our RB1. And we've seen Edmonds, whether it was last year with that 28 touch day or whether it was the year before where he had like 31 points, 35 points, and then he got hurt. But we've seen this guy really perform well in this offense at the NFL level. So if he's the guy, I mean, there's as much upside as anyone in fantasy. We had the GM recently say he's going to monitor the running back position, but that he does believe Chase Edmonds is an excellent player. So that's kind of like a lukewarm endorsement. Like, yeah, I like you a lot. You're excellent. I'm still going to be looking at running backs, but so far, no one else has been added. It really just comes down to they're going to add a rookie. Like, there's no way they don't make another move at some point. It's just a matter of, do they draft somebody like in round 1, like Najee Harris or, Travis Etienne from over at Clemson? If that happens, then okay, fuck, like Chase Edmonds, that hurts because he might lose the job. If they don't draft a guy in the first day, maybe the second day, Edmonds has to be the guy considered the favorite to enter as the horse. So I like his odds of, paying off a 3rd, 4th round price. If you're taking like some risks in early best ball, it could come crashing down. He's a guy though that really could end up being, we talk about Ryan Fitzpatrick, the biggest winner. Chase Edmonds would go down as the biggest winner if nobody really serious is added.
I just want to say I wholeheartedly agree with that being a lukewarm endorsement. Can you imagine endorsing your relationship with your girlfriend or your wife or whatever that way? She's like, hey, like, are we going to be together forever? Like, do you still love me? And you're just like, absolutely, unless I meet somebody hotter.
I'm monitoring the market, but you are excellent. You are excellent, honey.
I am checking out literally every woman who walks by me when I pass her on the street. But until one of them reciprocates, my affection, yes, analogy. You and I are a pair.
that is a fantastic analogy. Yeah, you are excellent.
You're excellent. There are people better, and if one of them expresses any interest in me, you and I will be parting company. Anyway, next one. Same question about Chase Edmonds, but now we're talking about Melvin Gordon.
Yeah, and we've seen Melvin Gordon obviously be a workhorse in his NFL career, so this is even a less of a question like, can he handle the workhorse, which we can't necessarily say confidently for Chase Edmonds. We've only seen a smattering of games, and he got hurt in those games. So I'm not confident that Chase Edmonds could handle workhorse duties. We know Melvin Gordon can. I mean, he was the running back 4 in fantasy just a few seasons ago, and he's been a top 20 guy pretty much his entire career. We now have Phillip Lindsay removed from the equation, which obviously helps because Phillip Lindsay, I really do think is a solid player. That I don't know why Denver wanted to do him as dirty as they did, but they just kind of like, screw you, see you later. And now he's going to go, to the Texans in the grossest backfield of all time. We'll talk about that next episode. But ultimately, Melvin Gordon, 9th in rushing last year, definitely 11th most opportunities with Lindsay there. 9th most targets. 25th most targets rather. Sorry. But still overall, in terms of opportunities, in terms of production, this guy was getting it done. He had his best games, obviously, when Lindsay was either out or limited. He was at RB1 in a third of the games, RB2 in the other third. So 66% of the time he was giving you top 24 production. He did have a couple, 3.7, 4.6, 3.1, couple of weeks that like legitimately murdered you. If he was bad, he was really bad. But I think with Lindsay gone, those really bad days definitely get more, neutralized, I guess is the word. And ultimately, the volume is going to be more steady, more secure, assuming they don't make any big moves here. And that will make Melvin Gordon, he'd have to rank it. So he's kind of like Carson, right? Like unsexy. No one's like, yeah, I just drafted Melvin Gordon on the Broncos. But man, this guy really did have 26, 20, 24, 21. Those low games were bad, but the booms, he did have a couple week winning type of games for his owners. I think he has a lot better chance of replicating those week winning type of days with Lindsay gone and all of the work secured right now. He could be a potential monster if they make no more big moves at the position.
All right, last question, and then we're going to hit the mailbag. How about Mike Davis in Atlanta? Same question as with Gordon. Same question as with Chase Edmonds. Is he going to remain the workhorse? What's his value if he does?
Yeah, I don't think so. right? It's a 1-year deal, like $5 million, I think, is what it amounted to. So nothing that's like, this is our feature back. We're committing to this guy for the future, no doubt about it. But if it is the case, then this is going to be an explosive offense. You got Matt Ryan still playing solid ball. You got Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley, like the two of the best receiver duo in the league, even if you got a little bit of an older Julio Jones here, a little more injury-prone Julio Jones. You still got a guy that is one of the most terrorizing threats in the league. I don't think it's going to change quite yet. So you got the weaponry. You got the offense that's going to put up the points. You got Arthur Smith coming over from Tennessee, the most efficient red zone offense we've seen, like historic rates the last 2 seasons under Arthur Smith. Yeah, everyone's saying they had to regress, and they ended up scoring more points in the next season. So I really, really, really like this play calling. I like the weaponry around him, and especially because Arthur Smith, in back-to-back seasons, 3rd in rushing yards, 2nd in rushing yards, 2nd in rushing touchdowns, 10th in most attempts, 2nd in rushing attempts. And yes, of course, when you have Derrick Henry in your backfield, like that's the complexion of your offense. Of course, you're going to base it around the run. But this is like a former tight ends coach, kind of like one of those, hard-nosed, love to grind it out, pound the rock type of guys. I do think that's part of his offensive identity. He loves to use that to set up the big plays, set up the play action. And I don't think Mike Davis is that guy you make a centerpiece that you then feed like 370 carries. So that's why I think they're going to draft a Najee Harris or somebody that's their true centerpiece, and that Mike Davis ends up just being a mere handcuff. But even as a mere handcuff, look what we saw last year from Mike Davis when Christian McCaffrey went down. More often than not, Mike Davis was giving you top 10 running back numbers. He ended up finishing as the RB18 on the season. There's definitely the potential to hit an top 20 RB season if he remains that guy, or if the guy in front of him ends up going down. My guess is this is just the first type of depth signing, because truly they have no one else. So Ito Smith right now, that's the only guy on the depth chart. Gurley's gone. This is just like, let's have a guy in here that we know can produce somewhat. And he certainly can. He's a pass catcher. He can grind. He's nothing like flashy, but he can get it done. I still think the next move, whereas if I'm like Melvin Gordon, I'm pretty confident it's going to remain the workhorse. Maybe they add a complimentary piece, but I think Melvin Gordon's going to be a workhorse. I like Chase Edmonds, like medium wise, this guy's probably going to still be the guy, but maybe not. I have very low confidence that the Falcons enter the season with Mike Davis as the workhorse, but should they do that, he would end up being the biggest winner of free agency. So we'll see.
All right. So with that, we're going to go to the mailbag. You got a cool mailbag graphic you can throw up there for us?
Oh, I sure
do. Is that
do.
something we have in the repertoire these days? It's been a couple months since I've recorded. That's what I was looking for.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's hit the mailbag, shall we? Mitch Chavez starting things off. What's up, my dudes? Hope all has been well. Mitch.
Love to see our guy. Great to see you, Mitch.
Tunes, Kyle Tunenberg, LFG. Yes, in all caps with an exclamation point. I hope most of the comments are like this. These are like softballs. Yes. I love this. We're gonna fly right through this. Mitch, again, thanks for doing this today. I'm turning 28 today as well.
Hey,
Mitch. I was 28 once a long time ago.
I had a more full beer for you, but I'm gonna finish this one for you.
Happy birthday, Mitch.
Happiest birthday, my man. So pumped that you're here. I wish I could say that I knew it was your 28th birthday and that we planned this just around it. We would do that had I known, because you're the fucking man, Mitch, the best fan of all time. But so pumped that you're here on your 28th birthday. I hope you have a wonderful day. You're the absolute man.
Mitch Chavez almost came when Juju was in talks to come to KC. I would have if he did. LOL. You don't even need an LOL after that. We completely understand.
I wonder what's going on. Have you seen all that? Like, a lot of people are in talks with KC and they end up going somewhere else. And sometimes it's been for less money. Like, why is Kansas City suddenly not the sexiest of locations? Like, you want a title, you go to fucking Kansas City with Pat Mahomes. I don't know what's happening and why it's lost its luster. Maybe you can tell us, Mitch, what's going on there.
Don't you think some of it's bullshit though? Don't you think some? It's like almost cool to be like, yeah, we're in talks with the Chiefs. You don't want that to happen.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know. You don't want me to go to the Chiefs.
agents might use that, but it's also a lot of it comes out after the fact. Like Juju signs with the Steelers, and then it comes out that like the Chiefs offered him $2 million more. Now maybe
all right, never mind.
Like why get less money to go with the Steelers? I don't know. And that's not the first time that happened. It wasn't just Juju. There's been like 3 or 4 free agents that like the Chiefs were apparently all in on, and they settled for the same money somewhere else. I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, but why would you not want to play with Pat Mahomes? Doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. Maybe you hate winning. All right. Chris Jason. Huh. Hi.
Hey.
Hey, Chris.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Hi.
Oh, man. Daniel Hallen, how does Mac resigning affect JT? You tell me, Wolf, how?
Yeah, so we're definitely.
I said resigning. That should re-signing is what I should.
Yeah,
say.
resigning.
Resigning. Yeah, it's funny. It's the same word, and they means basically completely different things. Re-signing.
So as a preview to next week's episode or Thursday's episode, I don't know when we're gonna light it back up, but we will be breaking down losers, and I'm not overly concerned with JT. I mean, Marlon Mack is coming off an Achilles injury, so it's like the historic rate of running backs coming back from Achilles and actually being impactful is 0. It's actually 0. Like there's none that have actually recovered. The list isn't all that impressive of names either. And Max happened so early in the season. There is enough pause, not because I'm worried about Jonathan Taylor's talent. I think he is an absolute monster. I don't think anybody can question that. And it's not because I think Mac is any good or should be a threat. I think it's because Frank Reich loves committees. It took Jordan Wilkins getting hurt for Jonathan Taylor to actually be on week. That's Jordan fucking Wilkins. Why did it take so long for someone to realize we need to give this guy 25, 30 carries? I don't know. But the fact that they're going and scrambling to go get their guy back, and the first tweet to come out afterwards was from some dude named Zach Kiefer, gave me nightmares as soon as I read it, was like, they love all 3 of these guys. They all bring different elements with Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor. And they're going to, all these guys are so unselfish that they're going to love sharing the rock 3 ways. Again, that should never be the case. I don't think it should impact him, but it impacts him enough that like he went from my running back 6 to like 15th overall, below Eckler, below Nick Chubb, below some guys that's like, there aren't these question marks. I don't want to deal with another fucking Frank Reich headache. So yeah, I guess that's a preview of next week's episode or whatever we go again. It impacts him enough.
Don't spoil it next week, man.
Yeah, it impacts him enough to drop out of my first round right now, which is annoying. It should never fucking be the case for Jonathan Taylor. So good.
Tunes says, hey, Truth, get rid of that seltzer and go grab a beer. Ouch, Tunes. I just want to, just for the record, this is, I've been drinking Pulp Daddy. This is by, this brewed in Worcester, actually.
Yeah, it's greater good, right? I love that beer. Pulp
it's good. It's 8% alcohol. It's doing me right.
Yeah, that's
not
far
seltzer tunes. What are you doing, man?
Pulp Daddy is very far from a seltzer. That thing is heavy.
If any of the guys at Pulp Daddy or Greater Good are listening and want to send us a free case, we'd be happy to drink and pump your product the entire time.
Little Bissell Brothers as well. This is called the Reciprocal. Fantastic beer. They make like 3 of my 5 favorite beers of all time. Bissell Brothers. Unbelievable.
We're drinking good beer on the pod, Tunes. Come on,
we drink good beer. Yeah, I like the call out. I love it.
I love the call out too. Not appropriate in this particular instance. Not much of a seltzer guy, Tunes. I'm gonna skip. Yeah. Well, you mean CJ? Hi. The next one I'm gonna skip because it's one of the most interesting. All right, you're gonna put it up there. Okay, go ahead.
What is this?
Why don't you? I'll let you field this one, Wolf.
I was diagnosed of herpes 3 years, and ever since then, I've been taking treatment. No, we can skip that one. That's
the most odd post I've received as the host of a fantasy football show.
Thanks, John Tucker. Everybody that's tuned into the fantasy fullback dive needs to know.
Thanks for listening. Big fan. Mitch, Rivera having a second year with that defense and adding better pieces should also help give the offense even more opportunities, making that offense to be more sought after. Okay.
Yep. So he's with me on that Fitzmagic train, which I love. I guess the one negative to that would be like, do we get less shootouts because the defense is so good that it's like they already have their 25 points and that's all they're going to need? So sometimes that could be a negative, but you're right. Like it's more opportunities as well for the offense to do their damage. So I'm with you, Mitch. I do think it's a positive. Yes.
All right. Tunes is back, not calling me out for the seltzer on this post. I know Terry is not on A-Rob's level, but same situation, still doing it with shit quarterback play.
Yep, exactly. That's a good comparison. Yeah, he's not quite A-Rob yet, but I mean, could he be that level? He's shown some of the things you need to see in order to be a player of A-Rob's talent. I think Fitzpatrick as the QB could get him to that level. In fact, I might like McLaurin more with Fitzmagic than I do like Allen Robinson with Andy fucking Dalton. I think I like McLaurin more. I think I do.
We're going to see how quarterback proof Robinson is because they're really putting him to the test here. Too bad. I really like A-Rob, but man, that's a tough beat. I heard a stat on another podcast. This almost never happens, but I think the odds of I don't know if it was the division or the Super Bowl or something for the Bears was like 50-1. I don't know if it was division or Super Bowl. And then they signed Andy Dalton and it went right to 60-1. It's just like, all right, they're a little bit worse now.
Exactly.
All right. Noah Pringle, Irv Smith Jr. stock going up.
You know what? That's a name. He should be on this list. Like that's a really, really good call. I think because we knew Rudolph was going to be gone like 3 weeks ago, we wrote about Irv Smith. I think CJ wrote it on the site a couple weeks ago after they released Kyle Rudolph, but that's still part of free agency. He should have definitely been on this list, Noah Pringle, and great to see you, by the way, a loyal fan. I love seeing all our regulars. They're just back for the action. It's so good.
I know. I do love that.
Yeah. I love our group. We got a great little crew over here. But yeah, I mean, I think he's absolutely a stock up. He's up to my tight end 15, I want to say in my rankings, was like the tight end 20 or so. Athletic freak, could be unleashed now. The games without Rudolph, I think he averaged about a touchdown a game without him. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. He should have been on our list. Someone we overlooked. So Noah Pringle, thanks for bringing that heat.
Noto 11. Wolf.
Noto. What's up?
Vision Assault. Let's go Giants. I'm a Giants fan. I love all of our signings. Yeah, I don't hate the Giants signings either. Vision Assault. Absolutely. Being a Giants fan, that's a real roller coaster, huh?
I'm sure it is. You just got to appreciate like when your team sucks, if they're actually aggressive the next year and like trying to improve. Whether it works out or not, who knows? But I love Gallaudet. I think Adoree Jackson's a solid cornerback. Like I do like that Kyle Rudolph. I don't know what you're doing there, but I mean, hey, he's not a horrible player. Like I like that they're going out and at least trying to get better. Just like my Patriots. I'm not used to this position. My Patriots sucked last year. And whether I love their signings or not, at least they're fucking trying. You got to hate to be one of those shitty-ass franchises that just like doesn't do anything. You're like, well, what's the fuck? Like, when are we going to get better if you're not going to do
man,
anything?
how's it feel to have been eating at the VIP table like for pretty much your entire life and now you're eating table scraps off the floor?
It sucks. It fucking blows. Yeah, but at the end of the day, like I'd rather have known what it was like to be at the VIP table and like have it be shitty afterwards than to never add the seat. So, you know, I've been spoiled. And you know what happened this season was I became like that much more of a fantasy fan. Like I would never have missed a Pats game over the first 31 years of my life. And this year it's like, I guess I can just put on Red Zone and enjoy it all day. Because I'm not going to watch Cam Newton throw the ball at his receiver.
Yeah, you would have been watching Cam Newton throwing a football like he was trying to skip a stone across the lake.
Exactly. So I was able to just enjoy a little more Red Zone. I can find the positives, right?
Yeah. Gus Fink, 2 quarterback standard keeper league. Would you keep any of these guys? Hurts, Cam, Hill, Ben, or Locke?
I love Jalen Hurts. I mean, now that Carson Wentz is out of there, this guy was the QB4 once he took over. Definitely Hurts is by far my favorite on that list. I think Taysom Hill is very interesting. But they did sign Jameis Winston. He was going to be one of those guys that we're going to talk about next episode. Like, let's wait and see how this plays out because Winston could end up being a top 10 quarterback next year in that offense with those weapons, with that play calling. Like, if Winston's the guy, he's going to light it up. I'm excited. I hope it is. I love Jameis Winston. I don't know. I've always just loved that guy. I love a good gunslinger, Nat. I just love somebody that just unloads and doesn't give fucks, like Ryan Fitzpatrick, like Jameis Winston. I really hope Winston's a starter. But if Hill ends up becoming the everyday starter and it's endorsed ahead of time, he was the quarterback like 4 or 5 when he was the starter. But of this list, the only guy I'm genuinely confident in, Gus Fink, is Hurts.
All right, that's fair. Tunes, CEH cost me the championship. Yeah, you're probably not the only one.
Cost a lot of people a championship. He's a fucking asshole.
Cody Hoxie, saw your new big board and saw Keenan Allen name it, brought back really bad memories.
Yeah.
And then Cody jumps on, and this is in response to me bashing Cam Newton. Nathan Peterman is worse than Cam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair
call. Probably.
Do you remember the Keenan Allen nightmare he's referring to?
Which one? I mean, there have been a lot of Keenan Allen
There
nightmares.
have been.
Oh, yes, I do. You mean when he was like, you better start me?
Yes, exactly. That was the worst fucking. We were doing a Thursday night show.
If I recall correctly, I mean, what was this? That was one of our post Red Zone shows. You and me.
Yep. No, that was Thursday night. It was a Thursday night preview, and It was one of those things where it was like, do we play him and get our stud in, or do we sit him? And
you're like, you got to do it.
You got to play your stud
right from the horse's mouth.
And it's been 2 years in a row now. We got to remember this. Cody, I'm counting on you. Week 14 next year. If Keenan Allen's like somewhat limited and says to play him, is active but might be on a snap count, whatever, remind me of this moment because
Cody, you're the guy that's got to splash us in the face with a bucket of ice water when that happens.
Wake us
that's
up.
Your job.
That was so bad. Like
oh yeah, man, I had forgotten all about that. Sorry, man.
Me. Oh, that was a nightmare.
All right, Toon says, what do you think of the Patriots moving up in the draft for a top-tier guy and using Newton similarly to how the Saints use Hill?
Would love it.
I would love it. I mean, he's not as good a passer as Hill.
No. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean maybe not? He's not.
Yeah, he's not. There's nobody that's like a worse passer that's starting in the NFL than Cam. Like, it's bad. No. But I would love
Nathan
that.
Peterman does, just to be clear, Nathan Peterman doesn't start, right?
No.
Okay, I was going to say, sure, we could find guys in history that are worse than Cam.
Yes.
But, you know,
no one
he's
that's
a starting quarterback of an NFL team.
But yeah, Tunes, like that move, I genuinely hope that this is not it for the Patriots. Like, I love this offseason so far that we've been aggressive, that we've gone and gotten people, but we have not addressed the most important position of all, which is quarterback outside of Cam Newton. If they don't go and get a rookie, whether it's at 15, whether they trade up and get another guy, or whether they trade for like a Deshaun Watson or something crazy. Well, who knows? Who knows these days what the deal is with Deshaun Watson? Good Lord, that's a
whole podcast in itself, right?
Right, exactly. But if Cam Newton's their only answer at quarterback this year, then no matter what happened this offseason, I don't consider it a win. Like, all these great offensive weapons and line and all that's awesome. If Cam Newton's your only answer right now, then this is a loss.
All right. Toon says, Michael Onwenu was the second-ranked rookie offensive lineman, and he changed positions all year. He will be key, and that's in caps, to the Patriots' offensive line.
Agreed. Love that line insight from Tunes. Going even deeper than I've ever gone. Like it.
Mitch says, you're right, Wolf, and it is odd. Too bad we didn't somehow pull off that Trent Brown trade like your Pats did. I'm excited for your Pats. They should be a much better season for them. Low bar, but you're right.
It's not a high bar to beat, but yeah, you're right, Mitch. Like, why, if that was the price to get Trent Brown and he agreed to that new deal, like, you guys could really use a left tackle. We had like Isaiah Wynn and he's okay. So I'm so pumped that we now have Trent Brown back, who we know is a mauler. You guys desperately need a left tackle. And if all it took was a fourth rounder to get him, like, why didn't that happen for the Chiefs? I don't know. But yeah, I'm pumped about it, Mitch. You're absolutely right.
Then Kyle says, okay, alcoholic seltzer, fair enough. I mean, it's pretty good. White Claw's like alcoholic seltzer, right?
Yeah, you got an 8% double IPA. Tunes is coming in at you hard.
I know, Tunes is coming in high. I think he's mad that I haven't been on the air for the last month and a half. A lot of pent-up aggression. He's coming at me with both fists. All right, Mitch, with Fitz picks, likely not, should be more positive.
Oh, yeah, he's saying the defense, like
right.
because Fitz will, as soon as they get a big lead, Fitz will make sure to give the ball over so that it becomes a close game again. Yeah.
Double T 18. Where's Kenny G going to be drafted?
That's a great question. I haven't.
And he says anything before late fourth, I doubt pays off.
And I think I'm in agreement with you too there, Kenny. And that's why we didn't talk about.
No, he's not Kenny. He's double T 18.
Double T.
Kenny G is the guy we're talking about, not the alto sax player.
Double T.
Kenny Gallaudet.
No, so yeah, I actually agree with you. That's why we didn't have Kenny Gallaudet on the winners. Because yeah, I think the Giants offer a fair target share. Daniel Jones could take another step. And we've seen Jason Garrett make monsters out of alphas in the past. Des Bryant and Miles Austin had huge seasons, and Terrell Owens back in the day. All that being said, I don't necessarily want him in my top 4 rounds. I think I have him right around like 50 to 60 overall. And my guess is someone's going to bite before I do. So I'm kind of with you, Double T. I doubt he pays off anything. The upside is astronomical, though. Like, I mean, he could just be like a 95 catch, 1,500 yard, 10 touchdown day, like all the past wide receiver ones under Jason Garrett. But I'm with you. I have my doubts. I certainly have my doubts.
All right, Pitt Steel City 63. Rudolph may need foot surgery, of course. Rudolph.
Good signing by the Giants. Before the season even begins, let's sign the guy that might need foot surgery.
Mitch Chavez, you got to remember Watkins is only playable week 1 as well.
Yeah, right? Seriously, Sammy Watkins every season, 40-point week 1, and then nothing else.
You want to draft Watkins mid rounds and then flip him immediately.
You know who else always does that is Malcolm Brown, the running back for the Rams. 3 touchdowns in back-to-back week 1s. Nothing the rest of the season.
Just to show you how old I am, when you said, you know who's like that in week 1, immediately my brain went to Tom Rathman, former running back for the 49ers, who I remember scored 3 touchdowns in week 1 in like 1992 or something like that.
No clue who you're even talking about.
Like Tom Rathman. Look him up. Google him.
Tom Rathman. Okay.
Tom Rathman. Cody Hoxie. Hi, I got you. I say I won't draft him because I would have won the championship if I didn't start him. But he's so damn good when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I'm all in on having Keenan Allen again because I just think, again, the line being better improves the whole offense. I think more weapons there gives Keenan Allen maybe not quite the target share. I mean, that guy was seeing like 40 to 50% of the targets on a weekly basis. It was insane. But the quality of those targets will go up. I think he's going to go significantly underdrafted because he left a bad taste in people's mouths. And, it's just Keenan Allen. Like it's kind of like Chris Carson, like not sexy, but just sturdy, steady production each and every week. So he is so damn good when he's healthy. Among the best little slot receiver. Like, I love him. I'm all in on him again.
All right. Mitch says, thanks for the birthday witches as well. Thanks, guys. I wish you guys to have a great rest of the week. You too, Mitch. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to do this, this pairing, we're going to do this again, maybe in a couple days, maybe next week, but we're going to be back with the Losers podcast. So I hope we'll see you then.
Absolutely. Yeah. And happy birthday again, my man. We're just we're pumped we were here for you on your birthday. That's just great timing, aligning of all the wolf moons for you. Love it.
Kyle says you might be right, Truth. I've had Rose Street withdrawals. Thanks, guys. All right, Kyle. We understand. We've been sad. We've been missing you guys.
I've had withdrawals of you guys. Absolutely.
Mitch Chavez didn't think you were that old. Truth 99 LOL. Yeah, I'm older than you think, Mitch.
Yeah, Mitch, how old do you think Truth is? Let's get some. I love playing that game with my students, although they're
God.
You're 65.
When you ask kids, there's no difference between like 21 and 60. So
exactly.
Yeah, I'm the old guy on the RSJ staff. Definitely. I can hang with the young guys, but yeah, I got a few.
You're the elder statesman, that's for sure. Around these,
no question about it. But I appreciate you not thinking I was that old.
Yeah.
And Kyle said 92. I was 2 years old, so no clue who that guy is. Kyle, I'm here to educate. Google him. Google Tom Rathman. And I can't even. By the way, I can't swear it was 92, but it was definitely like early 90s, somewhere like that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's it. That's the mailbag.
Awesome.
That was fun.
That was a blast. I'm pumped to be back on live. As I was saying, like I had my little hibernation for a couple months, and it was great. I wrote a screenplay. Like really like enjoyed my 2 months creatively and everything. But then as soon as I got like the juices going, the free agents started coming, and I started writing about those guys. Like, I miss this shit. Like it's the best. And then it's even better going live. And I guess I have to deal with seeing the truth, but ultimately talking about football again, seeing you guys, all the fans, like just coming back. It's the best. It's the best.
I'm assuming whatever screenplay you wrote, I'm assuming that there's a character based on me and he better like have gotten a good writing. You better have like, made that character really likable and wise and funny and all the good stuff.
The punching bag of the show.
Who's the punching bag of the RSJ staff in the screenplay?
CJ's got to always be the punching bag, right?
Sure, but he also like brings some valuable stuff to the table. Like he's a valuable member of the team. So there's a little punching, but like, what do we dump on the Duck character in the movie? What? Oh
yeah, Duck's got to get destroyed. He's dosed.
we love you, Duck.
Yeah. But guys, yeah, thanks so much again. If you're catching the replay, appreciate you tuning in. And if you made it this far, especially, thumbs up is always so greatly appreciated. But especially if you don't mind doing us a solid, reviewing the podcast to help us grow our audience, there is so greatly appreciated. We will be, as Truth said, whether it's in 2 days or next week, live to go over the losers of free agency so far. Never as fun, but honestly more likely that these players that switch teams are going to be worse than they were where they were the year prior. So you got to keep that in mind as well. But everything is so greatly appreciated. You can find all our content at rotostreetjournal.com, whether you find us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, RotoSTJournal, or me personally, Roto Street Wolf. You can find all our good stuff throughout there. Love interacting with all you guys. And I'm just pumped the football is back in the air again. It's just great. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We hope to have you for more shows throughout this offseason. We got some big things in the works this offseason. I cannot wait to hopefully be able to unveil them soon. Yeah.
Looking forward to it, man. It was fun. Thanks for inviting me to do this. We can't wait to do it again.
Love having you on. I am the Wolf.
I'm not the Truth Jones.
See you guys later.
Later.